शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सिन्दूरारुणविग्रहां त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौलिस्फुरत्तारानायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीमापीनवक्षोरुहां पाणिभ्यां मलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् पराम् अम्बिकाम्। ॐ ध्यायेन्नित्यं महेशम् रजतगिरिनिभं चारुचन्द्रावतंसं रत्नाकल्पोज्ज्वलाङ्गं परशुमृगवरभीतिहस्तं प्रसन्नं पद्मासीनं समन्तात् स्तुतममरगणैः व्याघ्रकृत्तिं वसानं विश्वाद्यं विश्वबीजं निखिलभयहरं पञ्चवक्त्रं त्रिनेत्रम्। ॐ नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुर्गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्ससुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्।
धृतराष्ट्र उवाच धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः मामका पाण्डवाश्चैव किमकुर्वत सञ्जय। श्रीभगवानुवाच क्लैप्यमस्मकमः पार्थ नैतत्त्वयुपपद्यते क्षुत्रं हृदय दौर्बल्यं त्यक्त्वोत्तिष्ठ परन्तप। अर्जुन उवाच किं तत् ब्रह्म किमध्यात्मं किं कर्म पुरुषोत्तम अधिभूतं च किं प्रोक्तम् अधिदैवं किमुच्यते। श्रीभगवानुवाच अक्षरं ब्रह्म परमं स्वभावोऽध्यात्मम् उच्यते भूतभावोद्भवकरो विसर्गः कर्म संगितः। अर्जुन उवाच अधियज्ञः कथं कोत्र देहेऽस्मिन् मधुसूदन प्रयाणकाले च कथं ज्ञेयोऽसि नियतात्मभिः। श्रीभगवानुवाच अधिभूतं क्षरो भावः पुरुषश्चाधिदैवतम् अधियज्ञोऽहमेवात्र देहे देहभृताम्बरा अन्तकाले च मामेव स्मरन् मुक्त्वा कलेवरं यः प्रयाति समद्भावं याति नास्त्यत्र संशयः। यं यं वापि स्मरन् भावं त्यजत्यन्ते कलेवरं तं तमेवैति कौन्तेय सदा तद्भावभावितः अभ्यासयोगयुक्तेन चेतसा नान्यगामिना परमं पुरुषं दिव्यं याति पार्थानुचिन्तयन् प्रयाणकाले मनसाचलेन भक्त्या युक्तो योगबलेन चैव भ्रुवोर्मध्ये प्राणम् आविश्य सम्यक् स तं परं पुरुषमुपैति दिव्यम् सर्वद्वाराणि संयम्य मनोहृदि निरुध्य च मूर्धन्याधायात्मनः प्राणम् आस्थितो योगधारणाम् मामुपेत्य पुनर्जन्म दुःखालयमशाश्वतम् नाप्नुवन्ति महात्मानः संसिद्धिं परमां गताः अग्निज्योतिरः शुक्लः षण्मासा उत्तरायणम् तत्र प्रयाता गच्छन्ति ब्रह्मा ब्रह्मविदो जनाः धूमो रात्रिस्तथा कृष्णः षण्मासा दक्षिणायनम् तत्र चान्द्रमसं ज्योतिः योगी प्राप्य निवर्तते शुक्लकृष्णे गतीयेते जगतः शाश्वते मते एकया यात्यनावृत्तिम् अन्यया वर्तते पुनः नैते सृति पार्थ जानन् योगी मुह्यति कश्चन तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु योगयुक्तो भवार्जुन वेदेषु यज्ञेषु तपस्सु चैव दानेषु यत् पुण्यफलं प्रतिष्ठम् अत्येति तत्सर्वम् इदं विदित्वा योगी परं स्थानमुपैति चाद्यम् इदं तु ते गुह्यतमं प्रवक्ष्याम्यनसूयवे ज्ञानं विज्ञानसहितं यज्ञात्वा मोक्ष्यसे शुभात् राजविद्या राजगुह्यं पवित्रम् इदमुत्तमम् प्रत्यक्षावगमं धर्म्यं सुसुखं कर्तुमव्ययम् अश्रद्धानाः पुरुषा धर्मस्यास्य परन्तप अप्राप्य मां निवर्तन्ते मृत्युसंसारवर्त्मनि सर्वभूतानि कौन्तेय प्रकृतिं यान्ति मामिकाम् कल्पक्षये पुनस्तानि कल्पादौ विसृजाम्यहम् न च मां तानि कर्माणि निबन्धन्ति धनञ्जय उदासीनवदासीनम् असक्तं तेषु कर्मसु अवजानन्ति मां मूढा मानुषीं तनुमाश्रितम् परं भावम् अजानन्तो मम भूतमहेश्वरम् महात्मानस्तु मां पार्थ दैवीं प्रकृतिमाश्रिताः भजन्त्यनन्यमनसो ज्ञात्वा भूतादिमव्ययम् अहं क्रतुरहं यज्ञः स्वधाहं औषधम् मन्त्रोऽहं हमेवाज्यम् अहमग्निरहं हुतम् पिताहमस्य जगतो माता धाता पितामहः वेद्यं पवित्रम् ओङ्कार ऋक्साम यजुरेव च गतिर्भर्ता प्रभुः साक्षी निवासः शरणं सुहृत् प्रभवः प्रलयः स्थानं निधानं बीजमव्ययम् अनन्याश्चिन्तयन्तो मां ये जनाः पर्युपासते तेषां नित्याभियुक्तानां योगक्षेमं वहाम्यहम् येऽप्यन्यदेवता भक्ता यजन्ते श्रद्धयान्विताः ते अपि मामेव कौन्तेय यजन्त्य विधिपूर्वकम् अहं हि सर्वयज्ञानां भोक्ता च प्रभुरेव च न तु मामभिजानन्ति तत्त्वेनातश्च्यवन्ति ते समोऽहं सर्वभूतेषु न मे द्वेष्योऽस्ति न प्रियः ये भजन्ति तु मां भक्त्या मयि ते तेषु चाप्यहम् अपि चेत्सु दुराचारो भजते मामनन्यभाक् साधुरेव समन्तव्यः सम्यग् व्यवसितो हि सः क्षिप्रं भवति धर्मात्मा शश्वच्छान्तिं निगच्छति कौन्तेय प्रतिजानीहि न मे भक्तः प्रणश्यति मन्मना भव मद्भक्तो मद्याजी मां नमस्कुरु मामि वैश्यसि युक्तैत्वम् आत्मानं मत्परायणः.
Thank you. So last time we were in Dwadash Adhyay. 15 we had finished. And in this description, the Lord begins to set forth the group of characteristics, verses 13 onwards, which directly immortalizes the worshippers of the imperishable, Aksharam, who have secured right perception and who have renounced all desires. So, remember that the beginning of the Adhyay was the question, who is more integrated? And those who worship the unmanifest, the imperishable, or who are those who worship you thus elaborately. So now the description of those who have secured the imperishable. Adveshta sarva bhutanam iti. He hates no beings, is friendly and compassionate, is rid of all sense of possession and of egoism. He is the same in pleasure and pain and is ever forgiving, Kshami. This enumeration of virtues is, in my opinion, also meant to emphasize the high bar that is set for worshipping the imperishable, for securing the imperishable. Insofar as one is unable to ascribe these qualities to oneself, what should one do then?
Worship the one with form.
Exactly. So Bhagavan is giving this inevitable choice. Reach the standard or simply worship me elaborately. Right? So let us see what the standard is. The first one itself is guaranteed to cull the incoming population to about 1%. So it's like the very difficult entrance exams. Right? 13 was hard enough. Adveshta sarvabhutanam maitrah karuna evacha nirmamo nirahankarah sama dukkha sukha shami. Then 14. Santushtah satatam yogi, happy without a break, integrated. Yatatma, self-disciplined. Dridha nischayah, steadfast resolve. Mayarpitam mano buddhir, yo mad bhaktah same priya. He is my devotee who has steeped his mind and intellect in me. He is dear to me. So, if you look at the four faculties of the mind, manas, buddhi, ahankar, and chitta. Three faculties of the mind have already been described here. Nirahankar, the ego aspect sense has been removed, and both mind and intellect are integrated in the Lord. So only thing left is the past memories, which naturally, if the integration continues, those memories will simply become the memories of the Lord only. Right? You see the power of this instruction, that in 2 verses the entire nature of the mind has been described that is necessary. Right? Of course, a very high bar, right? And so then one can infer that if those factors are not present in the mind, then the other approach given is the one to be adopted. Does that make sense? Right? So from a yoga abhyas viewpoint, he has given a very nice description of the 3 faculties of mind, what they are doing. Now, 15. Yasmad no dvijate loko, lokan no dvijate sayah, harsha marsha bhayodvegair mukto yah sacha me priyah. From him the world does not shrink. From that renouncer the world does not shrink. Yasmat sanyasinah na udvijate, na udvegam gachati, na santapyate. The world is not agitated by him. Na sankrubhyati lokah, tatha lokat na udvijate chayah. Nor does he shrink from the world. This is also very high bar. In today's Kali Yuga, there are so many things that can agitate the mind. Let alone today's Kali Yuga. Bhagavan Sri Ram in the Treta Yuga, living a peaceful life as the crown prince of Ayodhya, was he troubled? Then in Dwapar Yuga, did the world not trouble the Pandavas? So then what can one expect in Kali Yuga, right? So again, the height of the standard is becoming clearer as we read, right? So from him the world does not shrink, nor does he shrink from the world. He is free from elation, intolerance, fear, and agitation. He is dear to me. So again, all these are the ones who are perfectly established in the Akshara. Right? Now, please, will somebody read 16 and then the following 17, 18, 19, and 20? Yeah, so following verses.
अनपेक्षः शुचिर्दक्ष उदासीनो गतव्यथः सर्वारंभ परित्यागी यो मद्भक्तः स मे प्रियः.
Thank you. Very nice. Very beautiful. Anapekshaha, Shuchir, pure. Daksha, adept. Very skillful. He craves nothing. Anapekshaha. Udasinaha. He is even minded. In this, here translated as indifferent. But really, indifferent in the English language, I think. Udasina, I feel more is even minded. He takes no sides with friends. It's indifferent kind of gives a negative connotation in English language. Right? Anapekshaha, Shuchir Daksha, Udasino, Gata Vyathaha, unworried. He is unworried or fearless. Udasinaha na kasyachit mitra adehe paksham bhajate, yaha saha udasinaha, yatihi, Gata Vyathaha, Gata Bhayaha, he who has no fear. Sarvarambha Parityagi, and this all sankalpas or all beginnings are already given up by him. So this is the state of somebody who goes with the flow of dharma. Right? Yo mad bhaktaha same priya. The one who is my devotee, he is dear to me. And again, you know this one, Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi was the, so this is a Yoga Rudha. Then 17, please.
यो न हृष्यति न दृष्टि न शोचति न कांक्षति शुभाशुभ परित्यागी भक्तिमानः यः स मे प्रियः.
So a little bit of a repetition. Yo na hrishyati, he is not elated. Na dveshti, does not hate. Na shochati, does not grieve. Na kankshati, does not desire. Shubha ashubha parityagi, given up both good and evil. Bhaktiman, devotee. Yaha sa me priya, he is dear to me. So, just in case anybody had any doubts, Bhagavan is repeating the bar. Where is the bar? Okay. For the ones who want to immerse in the imperishable. 18, please.
शमः शत्रौ च मित्रे च तथा मनापमनयोः शीतोष्णु सुख दुःखेषु समः संग विवर्जितः.
Samah shatrau cha mitre cha. Even same towards friend and foe. And also mana apamana, honor and dishonor. So if somebody says, oh, you did a very fantastic job, this person is not moved. If they say you're an idiot, you're a dishonest fool, then also not moved. Shitoshna sukha dukkheshu. Again, these are the opposites. Cold and warmth, physical and mental. So their shitoshna is supposed to encompass all physical opposites. Sukha dukkha, all mental opposites. Samaha, sangha vivarjitaha, unattached. Sarvatra sangha vivarjitaha. Very good. Then 19.
तुल्य निंदास्तुतिर्मौनी संतुष्टो येन केनचित् अनिकेता स्थितिर्मतिः भक्तिमान में प्रियो नरः.
Tulya, even in ninda, contempt, stuti, praise, mauni, silent, santushtaha, contented, yena kenachit, with whatever accrues, aniketaha, homeless, sthira mathir, with a very steadfast mind, bhaktiman, such a devotee, me priyo naraha, such a man is dear to me. Tulya iti, tulya ninda stutihi, ninda cha stutischa ninda stuti, te tulye yasya saha, tulya ninda stutihi. Mauni, maunavan, samyata vak, the one who has controlled his speech. Santushtaha yena kenachit, sharira sthiti hetu matrena, tathacha uktam, yena kenachit achanno, yena kena chidashitaha. Yatra kvachana shayi syattam deva brahmanam viduhu. Shanti Parvaha. Iti. Clad somehow and fed somehow, resting anywhere, such a one the gods reckon a veritable Brahmana. Mahabharata 245.12. In Shanti Parva. Achanno. Yena kenchit ashita, having got whatever to eat. Yatra kvachana shayi, somehow sleeping somewhere, resting anywhere. Syattam deva brahmanam, that person. Aniketaha, niketaha, ashrayaha, nivasaha, niyataha, na vidyate. The one who doesn't have an address. He is a liberated soul. One more quote is coming by Anandagiri. Nagare ityadi smrityantarat. Sthiramatihi sthira paramartha vastu vishaya. Yasya matihi saha sthiramatihi. Bhaktivan me priya naraha. He is a liberated soul who has no attachment to a room, water, clothing, sacred tanks, houses, seats, and even food. This is quoted by Anandagiri. His understanding about the real is firm. Such a devotee is dear to me. Adveshta sarvabhutanam. 12:13. Ityadina Aksharopasakanam Nivritta Sarvaishananam Samyasinam Paramartha Jnana Nishthanam Dharmajatam Prakrantam Upasamharati. The Lord concludes the list of characteristics begun in verse 12-13 of the worshippers of the imperishable, the renouncers who have shed all desires and are consecrated to the knowledge of the real. So 20, please.
One small question, Narendra.
Ah.
Who is Anandagiri?
Anandagiri is a commentator
Oh,
on the Shankara Bhashya.
okay. ये तु धर्म्यामृतमिदं यथोक्तं पर्युपासते श्रद्धाना मत्परमा भक्तास्तेतीव मे प्रियाः.
Yetu, those devotees. Dharmyamritam idam. These immortal virtues. Yathoktam, that have been set forth above. Paryupasate, who nurture. Shraddhadhana, with faith. Matparama, deeming me the supreme being. Bhaktaha, those devotees. Ativa me priyaha, are exceedingly dear to me. Iti Sri Mahabharate Shatasahasryam Samhitayam Vaiyasikyam Bhishma Parvani Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishnarjuna Sambade Bhakti Yogo Nama Dvadasho Adhyayah. Ye tu iti, those renouncers who nurture, live up to the immortal virtues or immortalizing virtues as set forth above, those righteous monks, with a faith that deems me as the supreme being, are exceedingly dear to me. I, the imperishable self, am their final or unsurpassed goal. They have resorted to the devotion distinguished by the knowledge of the real. In the words, those devotees are exceedingly dear to me, has been concluded after due explication the principle laid down in 7:17. I am indeed extremely dear to the knower. As one becomes dear to the Lord Vishnu, God Supreme, by practicing the immortal virtues recounted here, the seeker after liberation who would attain to the beloved abode of Vishnu should practice them. This is the sense of the entire context. Iti Srimat Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Govinda Bhagavat Pujyapada Shishya Srimad Shankara Bhagavata Kritau Srimad Bhagavad Gita Bhashye Bhakti Yogo Nama Dvadasho Adhyaya. So it's a very beautiful but somehow a peculiar chapter, because half the chapter is dedicated actually to the description of those who are immersed in the imperishable, right? Although Arjuna asked the question, who is more integrated? Who is best integrated? All that Bhagavan says is, so it's a peculiar chapter in the sense it says, the other path is harder. That's the main message, right? Because right in the beginning he says, that path is harder. It's easier to reach me in the form. Now this is a difficult concept to grasp. For those of us who have nurtured the intellect considerably, there is a good and a bad in nurturing the intellect, right? 2 generations before, people were by and large fairly humble. I mean, if you think about your grandparents' generation, were they as educated as you? Not at all, right? Without a doubt, one can say that we are more educated than our grandparents' generation. Yes or no? Right? So we have cultivated the intellect more. Yes or no? Right? Now there is a danger in some sense, not to say that the intellect should not be cultivated, but there is a danger in cultivating the intellect too much, in the sense that with it the ego also grows, right? And therefore what happens is that when we approach the works of devotion and scripture in our tradition, spiritual tradition, the natural instinct is we want to go to that thing which appeals to our intellect, right? So we would like a logical exposition of the philosophy. Yes or no? This is not wrong. Don't think I'm merely pointing out an observation. Mahesh and others have very beautifully confided in me, and very correctly confided, that there is a frustration with superstitious practices. This is not wrong. If somebody does something without explaining anything to you, in a most mumbo jumbo kind of way, naturally you're going to think, hey, what is this, right? Come on. Okay, really? You want me to do this? You can't explain it to me? Really? Won't you ask? Of course you will ask. There's nothing wrong with that. You also are endowed with an intelligence, yes or no? You cannot sacrifice your brain between your ears like a cauliflower. You cannot, right? So you have to confront this difficulty. Yes, I have a brain. Yes, it's a God-given brain. Yes, it can apply logic. Yes, by applying logic in the physical world, I have become educated. Yes, that logic works very well in the physical world for the most part, but for the muon G-2, we are not quite sure about that yet. Do you know this? Did anyone get the joke? Okay. There's a muon G-2 experiment that was recently conducted in the Fermilab, where they're trying to determine the so the muon is a particle that has a very short lifetime, and its characteristics as predicted by the standard model of theoretical physics is under debate. Somebody did an experiment in Brookhaven that seemed to cast doubt whether the standard model of physics is right or not, according to the predictions it makes about the muon particle. And so they replicated that experiment in Fermilab, and now they are convinced that there is something that we don't understand. So I'm just pointing out that these are some of the very frontiers of our scientific understanding, right? So modulo those things, washing machines work, we know how microwaves work. We're pretty confident about the basic stuff, okay? To within extent that we can trust it. But that's fine. So then naturally, when we approach our scripture, we will want to go to the most logical, we will want to go to the most seemingly attractive philosophy, which is not wrong. Many people are drawn to the Upanishads. Very good, read, understand, no doubt, get an understanding, get an exposure, but then what happens is there is a feeling that, oh, I can quickly jump to that. So why don't I just directly practice yoga? Or why don't I just directly read the Upanishads and attain the beautiful insights of Advaita Vedanta? What is all this mumbo jumbo, Hinduism, 5,000 gods, so many faces? Why should I do all this? I really don't need to. I'm a very intelligent person. I can directly practice yoga and read the Upanishads, and I don't need these qualifications. And there are many so-called Swamijis who encourage this also. They say, you have done all these things in your past life. You don't need all these things. Okay? And many people are attracted to these things. They are actually thriving in today's world. Okay? But all I'm saying is, you have to be honest. Right? That's all. No one can tell you whether you are an adhikari or not. Only you can decide that for yourself, right? But obviously the ones who have set forth the principles are not idiots, right? They are the ones who have written these bhashyas and the prakarana granthas, so they know what they're talking about, right? So similarly, even if we don't listen to somebody else, if we read the original text, that also tells you something, right? So what, again and again, the received wisdom of our Hindu tradition and the richness and beauty of it is that first, the understanding what is karma, what is Vaidika karma, what is karma that is not Vaidika karma, how to perform it as seva, then bhakti, very strong faith and devotion, cultivate upasana, kritopasaka, then is guaranteed success in yoga and Upanishad and Jnana Yoga. Not that this should not be pursued, but you cannot ignore the rest of it. And then comes a deep understanding and love for all the practices of Hinduism that once were thought to be superstitious. True understanding must explain everything, right? It cannot leave some things unexplained. So in that tone, I will share with you a very bhakti piece, okay? So we will listen to something. Let me see if I can share my screen. Organizer, gentleman and lady, can I share my screen, or do I need to? Oh, I'm the co-host now. Thank you. I've been given permission. So good. I will try to share my screen. Let me see if I'm any good at this. Where do I need to go? This is the screen to share. So okay, how do we do it? Oh yeah, share screen and do this one. Oh, you can shift to do multiple windows. Okay, maybe I need to do multiple windows. Where is the? Just a second. Okay, let's see this. I'll get it. Yeah, perfect. So this one and shift this one and share sound. Okay. Are you able to see? What do you see on the screen?
YouTube, Nam Ramayanam by MS Balch.
Thank you. How about this? Are you able to see this?
Yes, Professor. In lyrics, green message.
Fantastic. That's what I want to put on top. Now let me go to the other one. Play. Red or whatever. So, wasn't it divine? When I listen to this, I can frequently get tears of joy in my eyes. Okay, so what is this most beautiful story? Ram, or in Sanskrit, Rama. What it means is, from the Vedantic, Adhyatmic perspective, it is the mind immersed in Brahman. Literally, it means delight, right? Yes or no? Sri Rama Rama Rameti, Rame Rame Manorame, right? Now, you see, in the Bhagavad Gita, verses 13 to end, you read all these descriptions, right? Did you read? Did you heard how abstract? They are abstract descriptions, right? So and so is like this, so and so is like this, so and so is like this. How will a man behave when his mind is immersed in the imperishable was demonstrated to us by Bhagavan Sri Ram. This is how a man will behave when his mind is one with the imperishable. When his father told him to leave, he left. But he did not neglect his father's final rites. His father was observing him from above after he defeated the Asuras. Right? So this is a very, very important and powerful, iconic story for us. Even if you don't believe in the history or whatever, itihasa, so it happened. You see, if you're trying to teach somebody, right? So I teach students. So suppose I tell them, you should write very well and leave it like that. How many of them will write well? So if I give them an example document and say, write like this, what is the chance? They all ask me, sir, give me practice exams. Sir, please show me some model work. Bhagavan Sri Ram is that model. Very important. How can idiotic millions and millions of human beings live up to the verses of these 13 to onwards if they don't have a model? And so that model is very, very important. And that's why when people say stupid things, that when India there is this big tumult about Ayodhya and Sri Ram, that's why it is important. And that's why when people like Sadhguru come out in support of it, he's right. People have not understood it from a psychological and socio-cultural concept either. It is everything. Bhagavan Sri Ram is both for a Vedantin and an Adhyatmic perspective, the ideal. He is the ideal from a practical perspective. He is an example. He is an icon. He's a socio-cultural, psychological ideal. And so it is very, very important. And not only that, he has been this ideal for before Rahim came. This is predates Islamic times. So you cannot ignore it. It is very deeply, deeply embedded in Hinduism, in Bharatvarsh, in the Indian culture. It speaks to something very, very deeply within that many millions, billions of people now. And so it should be respected. You see, in today's world, if we look around, everybody is so non-ideal that we can give up on idealism itself. Yes or no? It's so easy to say, "Arey, nobody can live like that, boss. Today is what it is. Everybody is cutting each other's throats, stabbing each other in the back. There's no way." Right? If everybody gives up like that, then how fast will the world degenerate? Right? So the rishis were very wise. They said, no. This would be a disaster. If you let human beings live the way that they normally would like to live, they will descend to the animals, and worse than animals. Animals will start to look very, very noble, and they do. Many times the way human beings behave today, the animals look much nobler. Even before today, Bhartrhari wrote, you know the verse I am fond of quoting? Yesham na vidyana tapo na danam jnanam na sheelam na guno na dharma same te mrityuloke bhuvibhara bhutaha manushya rupena mrigas charanti sahitya sangeeta kala vihina sakshat pashuhu puchha vishanahina trinam na khadannapi jeevamana tadbhagadeyam paramam pashunam. The fact that they don't eat grass is a great blessing that has been obtained by the punya of the pashus. Such are human beings who have no dharma, no tapa, no charity, no gyan, no sheel, no guna, no vidya, no sahitya, no sangeeta, no kala. They are nothing but animals. Right? This Bhartrhari wrote very long time ago. In his time itself, if it was that bad, you can only imagine what the situation is today. So, nevertheless, this is the role of bhakti is very, very important. And the role of Bhagavan Sri Ram is within all bhakti, it is very important because he gives the ideal of how a human being whose mind is completely immersed in imperishable, how he lived. And this, in my opinion, this Nama Ramayana is very beautiful because in 60 odd verses, I don't know, the entire, it brings to your mind every event in the Ramayana, important events, very beautifully. Dharma sthapana tatpara Ram. He was ever eager to establish Dharma, right? Ayodhyaka Mukti Dharam. He gave Mukti to everyone in Ayodhya, right? These are all brilliant composition. Yes or no? Vaikunthalaya Samsthitaram. In the end, he reaches. Kala himself comes and tells him, your time is now up, please come back. Right? Nityananda Padasthitaram. He is eternally in bliss. This is it. This is the poetry. This is the beauty. This is our Sanatana Dharma. Right? To be inspired by it. Yes, we are human beings. Yes, we are subject to many, many limitations. Yes, we are imperfect in a million ways. That is the nature of being born a human. Right? Halfway between the divine and the demonic, no doubt. That also Bhagavan will talk about later in the Bhagavad Gita. Right? Daiva Asurasam, Asuri Sampad. Right? Being born a human being, you are stuck between the two. There is no hope of leaving either. One cannot be totally an Asura either. So conscience will come and prick. One cannot be totally perfect either. Right? But in that context, someone like Bhagavan Sri Ram stands as a light shining and constantly guiding us at all times. To listen to his story is, for a true bhakta, the heart just leaps up with joy. Tears of joy will come as your devotion increases, as you listen more and more. Aganita Gunagana. Aganita, uncountable virtues. If you start to read the Ramayana, first Valmiki asks Naradji, do you know of a human being with these qualities? Right? And he lists the qualities. He says, very hard. What you have asked is very, very difficult. But there is one such a. Huh? See, this is inspiring. Without inspiration, man is nothing. Man is nothing without inspiration. Right? So the rishis were very, very brilliant. Right? Maharshi Valmiki to have composed this is a brilliant composition. Right? So, how did you like our discussion of Dwadashadhyaya?
Very nice, uplifting, Dr. Shankar, as always. So this is the yoga of devotion, that is chapter. And I remember Sri Ramakrishna, he used to mention, right, for Kali Yuga. So the devotion is better practice to go. Yeah, you mentioned, intellect. If we are too much in intellect, ego also grows, and then that would be itself obstacle if not handled properly, right, over time. So he mentioned for Kali Yuga, it's bhakti is the best, and so that was the statement, but not in detail what was the purport of that when he said that. So right.
Hopefully it is a little clearer after our study of this adhyaya, right? And full circle. So essentially what I'm saying is there is nothing wrong in our enjoying the study of the Upanishads. There's nothing wrong in practicing yoga abhyas. All these are very good. But let no one think that this is any less. No, not at all. It is in fact most delightful. And you see, it is simple. Because even if you can't sit in meditation, you can listen to this 5 times. Right? It will start ringing in your ears, okay, after a while. Then whenever the mind is a little troubled, you will turn to it. And it's inspiring. There is no doubt about it, right? So simple recipes for challenging times is the idea. So with this 12th adhyay, we will have concluded in some sense the instructional part, and then will come some very beautiful conceptual. So 13 to 18 are more conceptual. So kshetra kshetragya, then gunatraya vibhaga, which is very beautiful and powerful too. Then Purushottama, I think. Then I said Daiva Asuri Sampat, right? And then Shraddha Traya Vibhaga Yoga, threefold faith. And then last one is a long one, if I remember right. 18. Which will kind of be a culmination of the entire Gita itself. And Moksha Sannyasa Yoga. So from now on, it will be mostly conceptual, useful concepts, nevertheless, very useful concepts. Because Bhagavan has already said, he will say in the next one, what I call Jnanam is this Brahma Jnanam. Really, what I call Jnanam, he says, is Brahma Jnanam. In fact, in our Upanishads, they call the other Ajnanam. Ignorance, right? Anyway. Any questions, comments before we close?
So, Dr. Shankar, like analysis here, and I think it is required because you get a two different context. You give a basically the analysis of like what it needed to reach that destiny, right? And you gave example of Ram, which is the Purushottam, right? He is the extreme of, like, if you ask for a exam and he is like 100 out of 100, right? So what is the passing marks here?
Durgeshji, I knew you will ask a tough question. Now, in this time, they say, even taking the name of the Lord with true bhakti, right? That is sufficient. And that's why, again, as Mahesh was saying, Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna also says, you see, that's a very good point you raised. Because in the other ones, it is a little harder to decide what is the passing marks. Okay. Suppose I read 18 Upanishads back to front 20 times, is that enough? If I do, I don't know, 500 times, if I practice 74 asanas in the 84 asanas in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, is that enough? If I master all the pranayamas, is it enough? Right? There is no answer. But there is an answer in bhakti. Yes. If you take the name of the Lord even once with true devotion, it's enough. Right? It is enough in the sense that your feet are now on the right path. Right? Remember, Bhagavan already said that Suduracharo, right? He must be considered a sadhu because he has devoted himself to me. Right? So this path is truly very easy. And it's not to say that this is not a dumb path in the sense that you're not going to sacrifice your honesty overnight. You know, because the moment we devote ourselves to the Lord, whatever dishonesties we have will gradually start coming to light in our interactions in the world. Right? It's a very difficult path actually, because once you adopt the path of bhakti, you can't complain. Why can you not complain? Because everything is God's prasad. If you say, oh, this is really, then Guru will tell you, no, but this is God's prasad only. Why are you complaining? You said that, what is that? Kayena vacha manasendriyarva, I gave up all my actions. So whatever fruits you get, you shouldn't complain about. You have to love it and enjoy it. Very difficult path. Yes or no? Most people don't understand that. They think I'm very religious and pious, but bad things are happening to me. No. That means that God is not the right Phaladata. Can it be true? The Phaladata is perfect. The phal he gave is according to the karma. Right? So once we accept that, we cannot complain at all. It's very difficult path, that's why. Right? But it's also easy path. Right? So this is important. We cannot pretend to be pious and then not accept the Lord's judgment. Right? Because as Ishvara, as Phaladata, his judgment is perfect. So, however you cut it, it's easy or difficult depending on how you look at it. Right? If the mind is pliable, it's easy, and you always pass. Did that answer your question, Durgesh ji?
Yeah. Yes.
Anyway, very enjoyable satsang. I hope you all enjoyed. This Bhakti Yoga is beautiful. It is actually very, very powerful. Whatever, if you can spend 10 minutes of the day in some puja, whatever your heart is attracted to, whichever Ishta Devata, it's very, very, very nice for the heart and the mind. It will, it's truly a boat to cross. Even in the most difficult times, it will give you that refuge, Sahara. I'll say Shanti Mantram. We will meet again. Thank you. It was lovely, enjoyable. Om Tachamyora Vranimahe Gatum Yajnaya Gatum Yajnapataye Daivi Swastirastunaham Swastirmanushabhyaham Urdhvam Jigatu Bheshajam Shanno Astu Dvipadehe Sham Chatushpade Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste everyone. Have a lovely evening and a lovely weekend. I'll see you in a week.